Everyone, I'm Xrp Charts, and hope you all had a good swell thus far. Um, that said, I see everyone reacting to this big giant red candle here. Actually, several of them, depending on how far back in time we go. I think there's a lot of overreaction going on in the market, and I just wanted to address this and step back in time a little bit. Obviously, I made that candle a lot bigger than it needs to be. The other day, I did a Twitter post about this rising wedge. This was a warning. I have since made some adjustments, as later on in the thread I did say some of these counts may not be right, mainly this C, so C's been adjusted down to show it, and I believe it's probably done. You can see coming off this B, you have 1, 2, 3. Your fourth does not really pass your 1, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is your fifth leg, looking like an extended fifth leg. We'll see what happens here, as we do have some resistance and the moving average is turning over here, rotating over. So support on this 4-hour is becoming resistance, but that's not set in stone at the moment, so we'll see what happens. The reason I'm doing this is because the reason I posted this triangle the other day is it was kind of foreshadowing. I gave the warning there that if volume did not increase, we were likely looking at this heading the opposite direction. We've watched a steady volume decline, as you can see by this trend line. But there's some very important stuff here that people may take note of, especially people who are trying to trade and gain more XRP. A lot of people don't encourage people to trade, but I think if you have a plan, and you are trading responsibly and smart, it's something that can benefit people. And a lot of people in the XRP community are holders. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I wish more people would learn to trade, because these people who have the faith and belief in XRP could slowly grab more of the market share and start to control the market more. It sounds to someone who's hold is a naive thing, but you went from 9,000 to less than 8,000 here. That means you could grab 10%, roughly 10% more XRP with this movement. So the important things to kind of note, I've kind of outlined a few things already. This green line is a turning point on this chart. The reason it is we had this triangle outlined. You can actually see you could outline this same triangle on an RSI. So your RSI may look different. I'm using 6 right now. You can change this. I change it often depending on what I'm looking at. I'm running with a 6 right now, but it really doesn't matter if I change to an 8. It's going to be the same thing. It's just going to react a little slower. You can still outline the same thing. I'm going to go back to my 6 because that's where I want it at the moment. So a rising wedge is a bearish pattern, which is why I pointed this out. You also had an ABC correction here that went into what would technically probably be another running ABC correction. So you get a reset and then you get an ABC. Actually, it's a flat ABC correction. You can see how it's flat here right now. There is a chance the C continues down. The C, in all reality, could run all the way to this red line, in my opinion. The reason I say that is typically on a rising wedge like this, when the wedge breaks, the price can actually go down to where the wedge started. So the wedge started here, so we could see another 1,000 Satoshi wiped off here. I don't think that's likely at the moment, judging by this, but if my count is wrong, we could have a 1, a 2, a 3. A 4 is going to retest these levels, or maybe these moving averages turning over, and your 5's going to fall down, likely hit the 68.99 area, roughly. And this is a very important level at this point in time. I'm using Satoshis for those that follow me because I believe it is more accurate right now. I've got some previous threads on that. However, I do trade US dollars only, which is a little bit weird, but this gives me a little bit more direction as far as what to look for. So this green line becomes very important. This is the turning point of everything. The reason I say that is RSI. Momentum precedes price. So the first sign that momentum is changing is your RSI index. I have it on 6. I see it quicker. That's why I run with 6. I don't always use 6. I do go back and forth, but that's something, maybe I can do future videos or something about later. But for right now, I wanted to see price move quicker, or momentum move quicker, I should say. So momentum has broken our trend line here. This is your first warning. You then get 2 red candles, one being a indecision candle. Well, they're both really indecision candles if you ask me. But you get 2 in a row. RSI continues down through there. Momentum precedes price. And then what happens? Boom. You get the solid break of the trend line. You get a huge volume, negative volume spike, red volume spike, and price proceeds to dip. Basically touches the moving average, bounces, and retests the trend line. So there's a couple things that are very important about this and why I'm doing this video. One is it's recognizing this point, that RSI broke your trend line. The second is 2 red candles in a row, another bad sign. 2 red candles, both roughly indecision candles. You also have indecision here, previous to where I have this green line placed. So you have indecision, break of trend line, red candle, break of trend line. Then, if you didn't happen to pick up on these signals, you get a moving average test and a retest of trend line. So you could actually chase this up with the stop loss running below it and have this thing stop you out, at which point you get 10% more XRP. If you want to hold out a little bit longer, you can go for almost 20% more XRP. Here to here. Judging this, I think the red line's likely right now. But what I want to point out is this isn't necessarily unhealthy, what we're seeing right now. I'm going to remove a few things real quick. So this cleans up a little bit. I'll leave that. So the other thing to note here, before I remove too much more, is there's an important thing that happens on this volume as well. So we have basic volume coming down. You've got a couple breaks of it. But you can oftentimes leave these out, or you could draw a second trend line through them, which I'll go ahead and do just to kind of show you what I mean. If they were to connect, boom, which they kind of do. But let's backtrack. This isn't all that important. The important thing is what happens here. So we had indecision candle, then we had kind of spinning top type thing, another indecision candle, and then the red volume spike. Notice that the red volume spike actually broke your trend line. So now you've got the candles as confirmation, you've got the broken RSI, you've got the broken trend line, which I removed. Test the moving average. Normally when something breaks like this, unless it just sells hard and fast, which is something that's a little bit more obvious, I have a feeling this held a little bit more steady because of swell this year, which is a whole nother situation or discussion. But I don't think this broke as hard because people still don't know what's going to be announced at this point in time. So I don't think it broke as hard. And then you had the retest of said trend line, which was another area you could have exited if you missed this. And it's a very low risk to reward. So if you exit here and if it was to go through, it would likely come back down and retest the trend line. And I probably should have left those trend lines for right now. I can go ahead and kind of rough one in real quick. I don't think that was the original trend line I had. It would have been up a little bit more. I think it was something like that originally. Hard to draw in retrospect. I should have just turned it back on, but that's all right. So that retest of the trend line would have been another place that you could re-enter. And you also get a retest on your RSI down here. You get a volume spike. Now, this volume spike didn't get back above this trend line. So you've got three, and it not necessarily will if it's going to bust here, but this is another piece of info which you can look at. And what happened was a failure. And right after it fails, RSI rolls off and volume basically just drops out the bottom. Now, as I was saying before, I don't see where we're at is this is really dumping. I see this is pretty healthy. I see a lot of euphoria that happened previously in this market, and I think this market moved too fast, too quick, which is why you're seeing a double correction here. This is a very deep correction, which is the first sign that it moved too far, too quick. The second correction, which this is in a 0, A, B, C, is your second sign. And what this is going to do is it's going to start tightening up these moving averages and bring this market back into a more reasonable and healthy environment. This is something that going forward with Xrp, you may see if they bring one corridor, two corridor, three corridors on at a time, you may see these spikes and then let this market mature and consolidate through these levels. And then, a week, 2 weeks down the road, you may see them bring another corridor in live. You're going to see a spike, and then you'll see it kind of consolidate into these levels. Because you're going to have these bursts of volume. And that volume's, people are going to get excited. You're going to get day traders coming in, position players coming in. They're going to start playing these positions. Once you get really overextended like this, start moving away from these moving averages and start going parabolic, day traders are going to sell these. They're going to sell them every time. And these, if you can start identifying them and identifying these levels of resistance, we're going to go to a one-day chart. And if you can start identifying these levels of resistance, these are areas where you can start taking profits off the table and in turn start putting XRP in your pocket. By putting XRP in your pocket, you will be able to start strengthening the XRP ecosystem. And by strengthening the XRP ecosystem and holding more, you are going to start helping the holders of XRP control this market better. So this is kind of interesting because it actually, wrong one. It actually broke this top. But your sign here is the vertical, straight up. Things don't go vertical straight up like this, especially on the day chart forever. Once you start seeing 100, 200% gains, things are coming back down. the market needs to kind of realign, readdress, breathe, and sellers are going to step in at those levels. I actually don't want that. I want this. So I actually haven't even really went back and looked at this. But you can see this starts coming into some previous support, or support and resistance, depending on where you're looking. Not a really key level. It's a hard level to pick. I would be looking at likely levels more in this range. This range. But your first sign when it sold off to here, or the long wick, is that this market's going to move lower. Really long wicks like this are a telltale sign that you're basically at your top. So that said, like I said, this is a kind of a wrap up of the thread I posted the other day because I wanted to show you guys these important lessons, and I hope you learned something about RSI, volume, and breaking of trends. Once again, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing go towards 7,000 Satoshi in these levels, which would mean my count here, which in all reality looks a little premature. I have a 1 2 3 4 5 here as a possibility, but this could be 1 2 3. You're going to get a 4, which is going to retest the moving averages, with a 5 down likely to this support and retest this support. Totally healthy. Supports being retested is something we expect in this market. I'm not saying that's going to hold or fail at this moment. I'll likely do some posts going forward when we get a better idea where this market's going. But I saw a very teachable moment and wanted to help anyone interested pick up some tips on TA and things that can help you increase your stacks that are very highly profitable. It takes very few wins like this to increase your stack 5, 50, 100%. And you can't be afraid to just cut your losses. If you make this plan, you see these confirmations that we went over down here, you exit your trade, and the key thing is patience. You have to have a barrier there that says, okay, my trade is invalidated. Where is your trade invalidated? Well, you had the trend line here. Your trade would be invalidated not just if it crossed over, it needs to close on the other side of the trend line. So if you're running this on an hourly chart, which I was a 4-hour, I wouldn't have freaked out unless I had a 4-hour close over my trend line. And yes, you might have lost 0.5% here. What's the difference here? You just broke the trend line. You're not going to go to the moon, okay? You have 2 trend lines above you at that point in time. So you broke the trend line. You come up, you retested it. Let's say you went through. You still have the upper trend line. So from 5 to, roughly 100. So you might have lost 2 or 3% at most, depending on how quick you got in. But if it breaks this trend, the chances are it retests the trend line. That is just how the markets work. Most any trend is going to retest its trend line at some point in time. So once again, this is really to give you guys the knowledge to be able to increase your stacks, do it with some very limited risk. You could even just enter on the other side of the trend line with a 0.5%. So you could get 20 trades wrong, lose a 0.5% each time, and you get one like this for 10%, and you're breaking even. Now, most people, if you actually come up with a decent plan like this, you research what you're in, falling wedge, the patterns, what the likely targets are, like being the bottom of the wedge. If this breaks, your chance of trading this successfully is in your favor. You've already got confirmation on your indicators. You've got confirmation that you're breaking price, and you can see what follows. You have to remember there's a lot of other traders in this market, and they're watching the same thing as you. And traders are the ones that move this market, not the holders. So you can sit here and go, well, why is it breaking? Why is it breaking? It's breaking because someone saw a chance to make 10% more, and be that dollars, XRP, fiat, doesn't really matter. You pack those bags when you can, and I like to pack those bags with other people's money. This is Xrp Charts. Thanks for listening. Follow me, like, share. Until next time, thanks again.